Hello and welcome to How to Host a Successful Author Visit with Reba Gordon and Taryn Suiters. I am Taryn Suiters and my co-host is the fabulous Reba Gordon.
Hi everyone. We wanted to introduce ourselves. My name is Reba Gordon. I'm the library director at Trinity Preparatory School. I've had lots of author visits here at school, as well as co-founding an author festival where last year we had over 40 young adult and middle grade authors on our campus.
And I'm Taryn Suiters. I am one of those middle grade authors that has had the pleasure of being on the Trinity Prep campus. And I have written Holy Cow Fractions Are Fun, Dead Possums Are Fair Game, How to Almost Ruin Your Summer, and then my new release is a murder mystery called Coop Knows the Scoop.
I don't know, Taryn, I think your introduction is a little bit more interesting than mine. I mean, you've written books, so.
You've probably read a lot more though.
That's possible. So why is it important to have author visits, whether they're virtual or face-to-face? Because what you're trying to do ultimately is inspire readers. Nothing, and I can tell you nothing inspires readers more than meeting those authors and hearing about those authors' books. Somehow that just brings everything alive for those students. And you want to create the right environment where you want to create access to those books for the students. We like to utilize local booksellers when possible because you want to make sure that everything is set so that those students who have this new spark for reading can purchase those books or check them out from the library. So what are those first steps? What do you do? Well, reach out to those local booksellers. They have a lot of contacts. They have a lot of contacts with local authors and with authors out of state. Social media also works. Now, I don't want to call it Twitter stalking, but that's pretty much what I did when we first started. I just reached out to those authors online. I followed them. I learned about their books, and then eventually worked up the courage to message them and ask if they'd be willing to come and visit our school. All right, virtual author visits. When you get this presentation, there's a checklist that you can follow that's split into what the media specialist / librarian can do and what the author can do. But basically, and Taryn and I figured this out when she had her very first virtual author visit here at Trinity, is that you need to rehearse with the author before the program. And you need to give yourself at least an hour. You might be thinking, oh, that's so much time. It goes by really fast. You need to make sure, especially if you're using Zoom or whichever platform you're using, that the cameras and the microphones are working, that you don't get that dreaded feedback, that all the screens are visible, and if you're live streaming from other classrooms, that everyone can see. Perhaps most importantly, make sure that you and the author, or whoever is running the session, has a way to communicate that's hidden. You don't want everyone seeing those chats as you're panicking about something, and you need to determine your hosting, no matter which platform you're using. What about for those in-person visits? Well, when you're face-to-face, it is obviously a little different. You want to make sure that that author feels welcome from the moment they step onto your campus. We have something called a Sally sign here at Trinity. It's an electronic sign, and we always make sure that we've got a welcome message for that author. And it also helps promote the event, of course, beforehand. You want to meet the author at reception or wherever it is that they check in at your campus. Don't have them wander around looking for you or trying to find the auditorium or wherever they're going. You definitely want to make sure that you at least provide them water, a snack if possible, but definitely water. They talk a lot, and you don't want them to get parched. Don't forget they're going to need breaks. That's my really subtle way of saying, guess what? They're going to have to go to the bathroom. So build that into your schedule. Test that tech. Saying that again. And if the author is signing books, you need to make sure that you have everything set up to make it run as smoothly as possible. You need to have plenty of Sharpies. You need to make sure that you've got plenty of sticky notes, because what you do is you use those Sharpies and you write the student's name down onto the sticky note, make sure it's legible, and then you put that right into the book on the title page so the author can sign it as quickly as possible. We found having a table and a chair works best, and if the author is charging a fee, or when the author is charging a fee, you want to make sure to have that check ready at the event and made out to the correct person. So for all visits, whether it's virtual or in person, have your students write thank you notes to the authors. I know that they really appreciate those. When we had our author festival, all the authors received thank you notes. Share it on social media, generate interest, have other authors see, my goodness, what a fabulous time it was visiting that school. You want to communicate with the author regularly. You want to determine all those factors up ahead of time. Does the author charge a fee? Where should they park when they come on campus? Are there any special needs or requests? And remember, you're dealing with an artist and you're working at their schedule. You can't really rush this process at all. You want to arrange for book sales, whether it's through the local bookseller or with the author themselves. And if you want to learn more about having a successful author festival, I've included a link for you to get a little bit more information there. So now Taryn is going to give you some information of author visits from the author's point of view.
Awesome. Okay, and something that the author should do, one of the best ways that you can really promote the author and get the kids excited about the author visit is to use promotional materials. And the author hopefully will send you those 2 to 3 weeks before the visit. Now, I should say this might vary per author, so just check with them and ask, do you have any promotional things that you can send me that I can talk to the kids about? Some of these things might include links to book trailers, activity kits or discussion guides, and there can also be physical items like posters and bookmarks or preview copies of books. And then I also send out a newsletter to all of my media specialists that I have engaged a school visit with. Now with the poster that you see here, this is something that I send to the school ahead of time. I say, just, write on a piece of paper and tape it up what day I'm coming, when you want the book orders due by, and I'll pick up this poster from you on the day of my visit. And that way, y'all don't have to worry about trying to get that poster back to the writer. And some authors have it where you can just throw it away. This is a big one that I have laminated so I can use it over and over and over again. I'll keep these posters for a couple of years, and then once they start getting a little ratty, then I'll toss them and get new ones made. So it all kind of depends on the author. One of the things that I do is send out a newsletter. So here is an example of the newsletter that I send. And in this newsletter, you'll see down here at the bottom, I'll include the links that are what you could use to help promote. I have the discussion guide, I have an activity kit, and book trailers. There's even a color sheet for Holy Cow, which is the one picture book that I've done. And I also have the book order form in this newsletter. And one of the reasons I use a newsletter is I want to be able to make it easy on you, and I put all of the information in one place. And that way, here's the date, here's the time, this is how it's going to work, here's the order form, here are the promotional items I can use. And I also include a little bio and a photo so that kids can read about, who is this author, who's coming to our school, and it can be really helpful for the kids. Authors should provide you an order form. They will set their own prices. It's usually just, back cover copy. If they have to ship those books, they will sometimes include that in the price. So just make sure when you're discussing the timeline and the payment and how they're going to be delivered, that you cover all of those. Are they going to be shipped? Are they going to be hand delivered? It all depends really on where the author lives. I know with Trinity Prep, I'm not too far from them. And so when I got those book orders, I signed all of them to the kids and then I delivered them to the school. Now you'll notice that there are 2 different dates on this book order form. There's the day of my visit, and then there's the book order due date by. And you'll see it's actually after the day of my visit, because something that I've discovered as a writer is that kids get really excited about you after they've seen you and heard your presentation, and you'll get more orders typically after an author comes to your school than before an author comes to your school. So this is just an example of what you might receive. If a check is one of the forms of payment that an author is open to receiving, please make sure that as students turn those checks in, that they're made out correctly. Parents are so used to writing checks to a school for lunches and field trips and class t-shirts that out of habit, they oftentimes will fill in the school name. I know I've done it as a parent, and it just saves time of having to send the check back and bring back a new check. So that's just a little tip that I've learned. Reba came up with the most genius system ever, and I am thrilled. I don't know how I could ever go back after this. She gave me a tracking form that she shared in Google Docs. And this was very, very helpful. And I'm going to request anytime I do a school visit that the media specialist or the teacher will do something similar, because this was very helpful to me in a couple different ways. It helped with my own time management. So anytime a student turned in a book order, she recorded their name, how it was paid, and then if there was a special inscription. And then it also helped with my inventory control. And so as these book orders came in, I could check, once a day or once every couple of days. I could write it to the student, set the book in the box, and I knew that I had taken care of it. So my time management was very well managed. And then I could see, okay, if I only have a certain number of books that I keep, at my house, and I can see that pile's getting lower and lower, I know as the author, I need to order more books from my publisher so that I can make sure I can fulfill all those orders. So those are two things that are very helpful, having a tracking form like this. Okay, and Reba touched on a lot of this already, but one of the things I would want to just rehash is how important it is to really go through your tech and do a tech rehearsal. When we did a tech rehearsal at Trinity Prep, however, we did the rehearsal in one room and we were using a different room for the actual visit, and everything worked great in the room that we were in. And then we went for the actual visit. We had microphone feedback and we had chatting issues, and we had to work all of that out. So big tip for you is practice in the room that you are going to be presenting in. Now, when you do an author visit in person, you're still going to want to test all of the technology. You want to make sure that LCD projector is working and that the microphone is working. You won't need an hour for that, though. If it's in person, 10, 15 minutes should totally take care of that. It also allows you to get the lay of the land, find out where the restroom is and the vending machine, all that stuff. But if it's virtual, you really do need to make sure that you are familiar with the technology and with your platform. I'm more comfortable on Zoom than I am with Google or with Microsoft, although I have worked with those platforms before. So that's why, again, that rehearsal is very, very helpful. And you want to make sure that you're able to troubleshoot any issues if a feature isn't working, like the sound, which is a common issue that I tend to have. So definitely just, what it'll do is it will calm you down as the media specialist. It'll calm the author down, and we'll know, what, we've worked out all the kinks. Let's get this party started. And it's going to be a fun time for all. And then again, something that we have learned just from past experience is the author Q&A, that question and answer session at the very end, is really popular with students. It can start off a little slow sometimes because the kids are often a little bashful of talking to an author for some reason. But once it gets going and they get warmed up, those questions keep coming, and it is such a fun time. And so this is something you want to make sure you allot a good amount of time for. One thing that you can do is have the kids write their questions down ahead of time, maybe on an index card, and turn them into you as they're coming into the auditorium or the cafeteria or the media center or wherever the presentation is taking place. And then you can ask those questions, because you'll see that a lot of times kids will ask the same question over and over again. And as an author, we can get through more questions if you've already gone through and said, okay, well, 5 kids are asking the same question, so I'm just gonna, pull one of those cards and ask that. And that way we can answer more and more of those questions. And speaking of questions and answers, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. We asked y'all to send us some questions that you had about author visits, both from authors and from media specialists. And we have those here now, and we're gonna go over those, and hopefully we will answer your question. And if not, we're gonna have a slide at the end that has our email address, and you can email us any questions you have. So here is our first one. Are you ready, Reba?
I'm ready. Bring it on.
Bring it on. All right. So our first question is, how can a librarian or teacher manage and set up autograph sessions if they're allowed?
Okay, so here is what we've found through trial and error. The first thing that you should do is make sure that you've set up the direction of your line. Where are they going to line up to get signed? Where are they going to go afterwards? Then you definitely want to make sure that you've got a big table for the author and a chair. Make sure there is someone assigned to be next to the author to help them, whether it's just to open the book so the author can sign it faster, and then have 2 or 3 people in the line itself with the sticky notes and the Sharpies and writing down names and putting them on the title page. That's what we have found has been the most successful.
Yeah, and I would absolutely agree with that. Those are the lines that have usually gone the fastest and flowed the smoothest. We just kind of talked about this, but what can a librarian or a teacher do prior to a visit to make sure that it goes smoothly? Do you have any final words that you really want to hit home with that?
I would just say promote at your school, promote it home to the parents so they know that the visit is coming up, promote to your community. That's what I found. When you start to generate that excitement with the students, if you can maybe read a chapter or 2 in the library or get your English teachers to work with you and read it in their classrooms, that's definitely the most exciting. And then of course, after the visit, when they're beside themselves, you just make sure that they know how to order a book for themselves.
Yeah, and I absolutely concur with everything you just said. The most successful author visits I've ever had at schools have been the ones where the host, whoever is hosting it, whether it be the media specialist or a teacher or a reading coach, they have promoted and they've gotten the kids excited about it, because the kids will bring that excitement in with them, whether it's through a screen or whether it's in person, and that just makes it so much fun for the author and for the kids. So this is a great question. Why are author visits so expensive? So I'm
gonna let you handle this one. How about that?
I'm gonna handle this one. It actually, so this is a multi-level answer. And expensive, there's a wide range. I'm gonna tell you right now, authors are anywhere from free to several $1,000s. So you kind of have to figure out what your budget is and where you're looking. But I will tell you that this is our job. This is how we get paid. We are paid pennies for every book. We're not raking in dollar bills after dollar bills each time a book is sold. It really is pennies. And so we did all of the work at the beginning. We did the writing and the editing, and we got it published. And now we're getting our paycheck. And our paycheck is through those school visits and through the speaking engagements. So that's how we pay our bills. It's not that we're just bored and we want extra money, so we're going to go and charge hundreds and hundreds of dollars to speak to a school. This is how we get paid. This is our job. So that's what I would say with that. Again, there is a wide range of honorariums that authors provide, anywhere from free to several thousand, and it's just a matter of looking and finding the one that best suits you and your needs. Reba, would you have anything to add to that?
I agree completely. I've seen honorariums just ranging from a couple $100s to most recently $7,500 for an hour. Yeah.
Well, good for them.
You're paying for their art.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, and all of their work that they've done.
Yeah.
And once you realize how much work has gone into that book, it makes sense.
Well, and I know there is a line of thinking out there, and people have come up to me and they've said, well, I know you get your books for free, so can you just give me a box for my school?
I wish.
And I'm like, wait, I don't get my books for free. Where are you getting this from? So we don't get things for free. We still have to buy our own books, and sell them to you. Yes, we get them for a discount, but it's not for free. So again, this is just how we feed our family. It's our salary. Here's a great question. Is it better for an author visit to be with a smaller group or a larger group? As an author, I would say it's up to the author, but I like both. There's advantages to both. With smaller groups, you can maybe engage a little bit more, but they're also tend to be a little shyer at first than they are with the larger groups. So it's totally up to you. With larger groups, you can obviously get more kids into a room, and so if budget is one of your concerns, and you want to try to get as many kids in a room as get the biggest bang for your buck, that's fine. There's not a right or a wrong. Reba, what would you say from the librarian's point of view?
I would agree. I have had the same level of success with a smaller group as with a larger group, sometimes the smaller ones just they feel a little bit more personal, and so the kids feel like they can ask more questions. Either way, it works.
Would you say, okay, is it okay to have an author visit a group of students if they haven't read the book by that author?
What do you think, Taryn?
Okay, I have no problem with it. I think students will get more out of an author visit if they've maybe started a book by that author. They might not have had to finish it, but when an author, I know at least with me, with my presentations, I will talk about the process behind that book, and I'll share some behind the scenes things, and we'll talk about plotting. And if they've read the book, they're going to be able to engage a little bit more. However, there have been times when I've gone to schools and they haven't read the books, and at the end they're like, I can't wait to read your book. What you said was intriguing.
There's two different sides to that story. It is helpful if they've read some books by the author, whether it's the one that the author is specifically coming to talk about or not. I don't think that really matters. Because of course, if they've already read the book the author is talking about, then you don't quite have as many book sales. Now, if a kid hasn't read the book by the author, first of all, you're introducing them to someone new, and they're going to want to read those books. But second of all, those kids are going to have questions either about the presentation that they've latched onto that seems really interesting, or a lot of kids are aspiring writers and they want to know, what is your writing process? How did you get your book published? Do you always write your books in the same place? I've heard the most interesting questions from kids that actually had nothing to do with the book that the author was talking about, and they're still getting so much value out of that presentation.
Yep, absolutely. So I don't have a policy, and I don't know honestly of any author off the top of my head that does have a policy. So I think it's absolutely fine either way. So don't feel awkward about it. Can the session be recorded as a whole or in segments if we are at a hybrid school for e-learners? And my answer to that is that's going to be up to the author and what their policy is on that, because again, this is our livelihood. I think probably recording a presentation they might not be okay with, but recording the Q&As afterwards, totally cool with that. So again, you're going to have to just talk to an author and take it on a case-by-case basis.
That's a really good question, actually, especially in this hybrid high flex environment. I know that streaming is okay, so that everyone's seeing it at the same point. But that's another one of those issues that you want to get clear up beforehand, like whether or not there's a fee, and if they're willing to sign autographs, and whether or not they're willing to be recorded and have that recording shared.
Yeah. And as a total side note, that's also why, because this is our livelihood, that's also why authors can kind of come unglued if you take their story and read and record the whole thing and post it on YouTube. That's kind of actually illegal. So please don't do that. But that, again, it all goes back to livelihood. And just check with the author. This is a really good question. And an author is asking this question, but it's for you, Ms. Reba. Who is the best person to contact at a school or district about inquiring about doing an author visit?
Okay, for me, and I'm in a private school, I think that contacting the librarian directly is your best course of action. And if that school doesn't have a librarian, then reaching out to either an English department chair or an English teacher would be another good choice. In the public schools, I know when I'm wanting to work with librarians, I will reach out specifically to the individual librarian at the school in order to get the best response. That's what I think. And calling is sometimes not the best option. I happen to be in my office right now, but usually I'm not. So an email, or I've had authors send me letters or even a copy of their book that I can read, and to figure out whether or not we want to bring them to the school. That's what I would recommend.
I would concur. I think that's great advice. Great advice. Yeah, another reason for not calling is sometimes the office will patch a call through and the librarian's in the middle of a class, and now all you've managed to do is kind of tick off the librarian because she had to stop to answer the phone, and you're like, hi, I'd like to do an author visit. And it's just email's good. Yes,
email's good.
Do you require books to be sold at the visit or before? And we kind of talked about this earlier. I don't require anything, but having books sold before, during, and after a visit is excellent. And I totally recommend that you do that. And this, I'm going to say something that might go back to another question where someone wanted ideas for funding author visits for smaller schools. One thing that I've known some authors to do is to drop their honorarium if they're able to get a certain number of orders. So that's something to consider as well. If you can really promote and say, hey, if we can get, 20 orders or 30 orders, whatever that number, that magic number is for whatever the author says, you might be able to get a school visit for free. So that's something to try.
Yeah, and that's a good idea. In terms of finding funding, I know that I've reached out to our parent teacher organization, our TPO. We have sometimes a wish list when we're having a fundraiser, and so I'll ask for funding for our author visits. It's always worth asking if an author will come for free. You never know. And in fact, that's kind of how we started here, is we were highlighting Florida authors, and we found authors who were local, close enough by, Twitter stalking, and they were willing to come here for free, which is still amazing and blows my mind. But there are authors out there who will do that.
There are, and I have a policy where I'll do a certain number free each quarter. And then if I've reached that max and you call me and say, or you send me an email and, can you come to our school and, can it be pro bono? I'll say, wait, I've already at my max, but I can put you on the waiting list for next year. And so there's always that option too. And like Reba says, it never hurts to ask.
Yeah.
And then our last question, as an author, what are your hard non-negotiables? Do you require vegan or gluten-free food? Do you need sparkling water or tap, warm or with ice? I am a very low maintenance author. I'm happy with coffee. I'm a coffee addict, so I usually will arrive at your school with coffee. But again, this is going to be an author case-by-case basis, but I know generally speaking, we try not to be high maintenance because that tends to not get us invited back to school.
That's funny. I've never had an author with special requests like that, but if someone ever asked for M&Ms with the red ones taken out, I would totally do it. That sounds really fun. I want to see some crazy author riders.
I'm gonna, next year at the Trinity Prep Festival, I'm gonna have a whole list of demands for you, Reba.
Great. February 5th, by the way, February 5th, 2021, I'll be looking forward to those demands.
The demands.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that was the last of our questions. I'm going to pop up the email address here, and hopefully you guys will be able to see it.
And on this last page, you can click on that QR code. You can get the entire presentation along with the links. And I don't know, Taryn, this was super fun. You're amazing.
Well, you are so fun to co-host stuff. We're going to have to do this more often.
Absolutely.
We'll see if we get invited back.
Oh my goodness. I guess that's the key, isn't it?
That's right. All right. Thank y'all so much. And don't forget to email us your questions.